everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Spring 18 Admin Preview. We're so excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the latest and greatest features that are coming in the Spring 18 release, especially picked out for you, our awesome admin community. I know many of you have been spending a lot of time with the release so far, poring over release notes, reading the amazing blogs on the release, hopefully getting hands-on in your pre-release orgs and in your sandboxes. And today's our chance to dive deeper into some of those features that you're interested in and to hear questions from you, our audience, answered by our product managers that deliver these features that we love to get hands-on with in our orgs. So today's session will be recorded, and if you want to watch it again later, if you want to review some of the demos that you really enjoyed, if you want to share it with a friend, you'll be able to access that recording on the same page where you registered. And we do want to hear from you throughout the course of the broadcast today, so I'd like to kick it off to the amazing Rebecca Saar to share with you how you can interact with us throughout today's admin preview. Rebecca?
Thanks, Leanne. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Admin Preview. I am super excited to be here to facilitate all of your amazing questions. So there's two ways you can do that, either on Twitter using the hashtag Salesforce Live, or in the Trailblazer community in the Release Readiness group. Definitely use that hashtag Salesforce Live. That's how I will see all the posts coming up. We do encourage you to use the Trailblazer community for those more complex, meaty questions you may have, so we can have a nice, good discussion on there. We also have a leave no question behind policy, so if we don't get to your questions live, we will definitely be hanging out in the community trying to answer those after the broadcast. And that's all on questions. Back to you, Leanne.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. We love hearing from you. So again, please reach out to us on Twitter, reach out to us on the Trailblazer community. We love seeing your reactions, those features that you're excited about, and those that you want to learn more about. So we can't wait to see what you have to say. So we are going to be talking to PMs today, which means that we might get to see some snapshots into future technologies that are coming, into some of our roadmaps. And because of that, I'd want to share our forward-looking statement. It's important that you make all of your purchasing decisions based on currently available technologies with Salesforce. Now that we've covered that, I'd love to meet our panel of product managers.
Thanks. I'm Michael Gonzalez, and I'm going to share some great new Lightning customization features today.
I'm Alex Edelstein, and I'm looking forward to talking about Lightning Flow.
Hi, I'm Joe Ryan. I'm looking forward to talking to you about custom theming and Personalize My Nav today.
We have a great lineup today, so let's go ahead and get started.
Great. So I'm going to share some great new things that great new improvements we made with the Lightning App Builder this release. And the first one is something that I'm really proud about. I do not want to undersell this. It's an incredible achievement for our team. We actually have a centralized app building experience in the Spring 18 release. So what does this mean? This means, first off, you're going to actually be able to open an entire app, a custom Lightning app within the app builder itself. So it's not going to be just this page-centric experience anymore, though we still will have that functionality, but we really want you to have that app building experience from end to end. The next part is that we've brought the app settings directly into the builder itself. So you don't have to go into a different place and set up in order to both build and manage your application. So it's pretty great. It's a huge improvement for it, and I can't wait to demo it for you here in a few moments. Next up is some big updates to the Dynamic Lightning Pages feature. So we got a lot of great feedback when we launched this in Winter 18. We made it available for record pages. And as soon as they started to show it to customers, especially around Dreamforce, it's like, that's great. I have some really good use cases for the homepage. So one of the things we did in this release is we actually made it available for home pages. You're going to be able to create rules based off the user that's visiting that page. So once again, some pretty good improvements there. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about this pilot feature. So this is something that we were actually able to get in at the end of a release. It was a huge release for the team. They did a lot of great work. And what we have here is a scoped version of the optimizer report for your Lightning apps. So as you go through and you customize your app with the app builder, you can get feedback on how those customizations are going from both a UX perspective and from a performance perspective. So this is a pilot feature. It's going to be limited. So this is something you can reach out to your account teams about. I'll go ahead and remind you about that once again at the end of the demo here. But let's just dive in and take a look at this stuff.
Awesome. Sounds good.
So what I've got here is I've got Lightning Experience set up here, and I have the console. And let's imagine that I'm an awesome admin, and I have to make some customizations to this console app, this Electron Service console app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this app. I'm going to open up in the new app builder experience, and the way to do that is I'm going to go into Setup, and I'm going to go into our App Manager. Whoops. And we're going to go ahead and open up and access the app from here. So I got this app here. You can see my list of all my apps, my Lightning apps, even my classic apps, which work in Lightning. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to hit edit. And what that's going to do is that's going to open up the app builder to the details of this app. So prior to this release, when you hit edit, you would only see the app settings, but we've actually have an integrated experience with the page selector and the building experience in one. So this is your new landing page. This is your new landing area for editing an app. And you can see if you've built one before in Lightning, you can see the app details and branding options, app options to tell you what navigation it's using, utility bar setup is part of this experience as well. Even selecting and adding the navigation items is all part of it. So pretty great. It's one centralized place to go and be able to access all this stuff. The other area that we've added here, I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in here so you can take a closer look at it, is where you access the pages for the app. So prior to this release, in setup, you would have to go and access the Lightning pages in different areas. You could do it from the Lightning App Builder setup node. You could do it from the Object Manager. And what we've done is for an app, we've actually just given you one simple list of all the custom pages that are associated to it. So you can access it here in this list. You can even add new pages. So if you want to add a net new page, you can do it through here. And if you're familiar with our new page wizard experience, same options are available there. So this is all just fully integrated. And even if you have other pages from other apps you've customized, once again, you have the whole list there. So it's great. Like I mentioned, just one centralized place should make life a lot easier for not having to click to a bunch of different areas and setup. So let me show you the dynamic page experience for the home page. So it's something that I spoke about on the slide. And if you've built a dynamic page with the Lightning App Builder before, the experience for home is going to be very familiar. It's essentially the same thing. So what I'm going to do here is I have this home page. This is for my service users. And let's say that as an admin, I have a task where I have to add maybe a banner to this to provide a message for a subset of users. And the subset of users happen to be managers. They are located in HQ, and they need to go and attend a compliance training or a manager training. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the component over here. And just one thing to point out, if you're not familiar with the app builder, I mean, this is exactly what you get. We call it a WYSIWYG tool. You open up pages directly in there. You can see exactly what your end users see. And as I'm updating this banner here, you can see that the component, which was the thing that I drag and drop, the Lightning component, I drag and drop it on the canvas, gets updated all in real time. And you can see even as I zoom in different areas here, I have lists for case. This is just all live data there. So it gives you the best preview of what your end users are going to see. So it takes all the guesswork out of designing that experience. So with this banner, I can go ahead and I can just increase this. I can increase the size. I can style it a little bit so I have other options. If I want to bring other components into this page, I would go back to this list over here and just simply like I did with that rich text component, I just drag and drop them. If I want to go and explore other components that are available from our ISVs and from our partners, I can actually open up the App Exchange in one place. So it's been a big theme for us to help make admins more productive with the Builder tool. The improvements we made this release, plus things we did in the past with integrating the App Exchange and having that experience there, all about productivity, not having to go and click to a lot of different places. And so let's go ahead and let's make this rule. So like I mentioned before, this is manager training. It's for people located in HQ. So I want to create a dynamic a visibility rule here. So I make sure that this banner only shows up for the set of people that I want to. So the way I'm going to do that is every single component has this available in the properties where it says component visibility. So whether it's custom or standard or even from the App Exchange, every component can have a visibility rule associated to it. Every type of component, so there's no restrictions there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the button there that says Add Filter, hit Select. And what that does is that brings up this experience, which is just going to show me the options for being able to create a rule. In this case, and just one thing to note, if you've used Process Builder in the past, this probably looks pretty familiar to you. We borrowed this from the Process Builder team. One of the great things about Salesforce and our platform is that we can reuse pieces from each other. And so that's what we did here. Hopefully it's a very familiar experience for many of you out there. I'm going to go ahead and just create a simple rule here. So based off of the user, okay, what I'm going to say here is if the user is manager, which is a field, it's a custom field that I've created, I want this component to show up. So you see user is manager. When that value equals true, I hit done, and there I've made this page dynamic. I've added one rule to it already, so that's one set of criteria. If I want to add another one here, if I want to add another rule, like I mentioned, I want that user to not only be a manager, but I want them to be located in HQ. I can just use this type ahead search. I can pick office location, which is another custom field that I've already set up here. I'll hit done, and I have my pick list values. So yes, I want HQ, hit done. And then I can just confirm that these rules and the filters, I can just confirm the criteria here to make sure that that aligns with what I want. So I can show the component when all filters are true. If I was going to make sort of an or statement, I can say when any of the filters are true. But this is exactly what I wanted. So I've already made this dynamic right here. And so what's going to happen is that when managers that are located in HQ visit this home page, they're going to see this component. And those that aren't, that don't meet this criteria, they're not going to see the component. So it's great. I was able to do that. I didn't have to touch any code in order to do it, which is awesome. And even our developer friends out there, they don't have to do the extra legwork if I'm going to do some of the components to make it work. So I simply just hit save, and there my saves are changed. My changes are saved, and I'm going to show you just one more way to do it. So one of the other things that I talked about was that we have this functionality available for record pages. And you can create rules based off of the values of the fields that come from the object the record is associated to. So in the Winter 18 release, I can go in, I can create a rule based on case, and I can pick one of the fields from case, and I can create a rule based off of that. And that's what I've done here with this component. So I have this special VIP customer field that says when that equals true, make this component appear. Now what I can do in the Spring 18 release is I can go in and have an advanced option here. And what I can do is I can actually pick related fields. So for record pages, I can pick users. So I can set up a rule like I did for my home page. Or I can actually drill into the record and pick one of the fields associated to the record. In this case, let's say that we want to go ahead and we want this VIP component, this thing that's going to let our users our users know that this is a VIP customer, give them extra special treatment within the service process. So what I want to do is I want to put not only if the VIP customer is equal true, but let's just say that they have an open opportunity. So let's say that there's a business opportunity that that their account team is working on. So what I want to do here is I want to go to the account object. I want to go to open opportunities, I want to go to open opportunities. And what I want to do is I want to create a rule to say, you know what, even if they're not a VIP customer per se in our system, for this scenario, let's give them VIP treatment if there's an open selling opportunity to them. Let's make sure that they're going to be happy. We're going to resolve their issue. So I simply have to pick the field that I want to associate that to, and I can just say I want it to be greater than or equal to 1. I'll hit done, and then I just have to pick when to show this component. So when all the filters are true, that would mean that both VIP customer and an open opportunity, but that's not what I want. I just want one either or, so I'm going to pick the any filters are true option. I'll hit save, and that's it. Now I've added that extra dynamic functionality to that component. I've made this page much more powerful. Pretty awesome, really simple to do. Once again, I didn't have to do any code in order to do that, so it's pretty nice. And the last thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to go back into app settings, and it's pretty nice. I don't have to go back into setup. I can just click in one place there to go back into the app settings and access it. And I want to share a little bit about the optimizer for Lightning Apps pilot. So if you have the pilot enabled in your org, what you'll see when you open up an app is you'll see this menu option here that says app performance. It'll be below assigned to user profiles, just like I have here. I'll give you a little bit of information. So what we're going to do is we're going to run an optimizer report for this app that I've created. And what it's going to do is it's going to look at the custom record pages that I've created, and it's going to assess, kind of how I've composed those pages, whether I have too many components that could affect performance, whether there are some usability issues that I can go and correct. So all I do, and if you're familiar with the optimizer report and setup, this is essentially the same flow. You click the button, you're going to get an email with a PDF of that report, and this is what the report looks like. So if you're familiar with Optimizer, like I said, the structure is very much the same. I believe the Optimizer report was updated to this new style here. So if you run it in the Spring 18 release with this pilot, this is what you're going to get. And we're going to give you things like, we're going to give you ideas and suggestions. We're going to say, hey, you know what, for a related list, we know that related lists can be quite long, and we have a lot of customers that have created tons of them. And they can have, on a record detail page, they can be quite long and may take a little bit of time to load. So we give you suggestions. Hey, you know what? We think it's a little long. Maybe you want to use the related quick links component as an option. The news and Twitter component, and kind of based on usage, we give you suggestions. Maybe you don't want to have it on a primary tab. Maybe you want to put it on a sub-tab. And then we'll also analyze, like I mentioned, just the number of components on the page. So we'll give you suggestions on what to do. One of the great things about components and some of the standard components that we create, especially the tabs component, is you can put components behind tabs. They don't have to load. They don't affect page performance, at least the initial load at that time. So it's really a good way to get some recommendations on how your app building's been going. And so that's the new stuff that we have for App Builder. Yeah,
that's
super
so
excited about
exciting.
this release. Yeah.
There has been so many great releases for App Builder, and every release there is more and more ways for admins to take advantage of it. And I'm so excited to see dynamic pages getting built out even more, because then as admins we can build these kind of reusable pages and make them work for different types of users without having to do all of the additional administration that maybe we did in the past around creating entirely new pages and record type assignments and all of that. And that's really exciting.
And there are lots of tools out there that I've seen and I've evaluated them, and they make that experience so much harder than what we've delivered. A lot of times you have to go into code in order to do it, or if not, it's just kind of a mismanagement nightmare in terms of managing all the structure of stuff. So yeah, we're really happy about that feature and gotten great feedback on it.
And the optimizer will be great because for admins, as they are exploring more of the features in App Builder and building more and more pages, I mean, it's a best practice, right, for admins to run the optimizer as they're building these pages, so they can both optimize those pages, but then also understand some of those best practices you were managing around ensuring that those pages and then future pages they're building are, really going to be as effective as possible for their end users.
Really focus on that end-to-end app building experience, and part of that, and from what we've heard from customers, is that, we want to get some feedback on it, even before we push it out to sandbox to certain users. Like, we just kind of want to know, where we're at with it beforehand. So the optimizer report's a great way to be able to get that feedback.
I love hearing about it. I'm so excited. I love App Builder. It's one of my favorite features. And I know that our community loves App Builder as well. So I'd love to kick it to Rebecca and see if we have any reactions, feedback, questions from the community around App Builder and customizing in Spring 16. Rebecca?
Why, yes, Leanne. We do have some reactions and some questions come in. People are super excited about App Builder and it coming together with App Manager. We have Haley, a shout out to Haley, who says, yes, for dynamic home pages in Lightning.
Great.
Super excited about that. And Sarah Pulser is really excited for just making, the awesome admin life a little bit easier with App Builder. And we also have some questions. So one is rich text box components available for home page and record page?
Yes, so that rich text component's available for a lot of different places where components surface. So home pages, record pages, app pages, even the utility bar, which I kind of talked about a little bit. The rich text component's also available for that too. Yeah.
Cool. Another question from Rachel. Is it possible to allow standard fields to be dependent within field dependencies?
That's a good question, probably something worth following up on. I don't know offhand, but that's something we can make sure we follow up on with you.
Very cool. Do we have time for one more question?
We do, absolutely.
Cool. So really, really cool new feature, having the optimizer ability to kind of run the optimizer in an app. But can we also do it on just a custom page that we built?
So part of the roadmap for the optimizer is to not only have it for the app, but within the full optimizer report to also include one-off page information. So it could be a page that's associated with an app or a page that isn't associated with an app too. So it's on the optimizer roadmap.
Great.
Yep.
Rebecca, we do have time for a couple of more questions. I know that our community is very active with building apps and building pages, so we definitely have time for a couple more questions.
Awesome. Okay, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about the template options, if you could elaborate.
Yeah. So in the winter release, we released the ability to create a custom template. So that requires some development skills. It's just like building a Lightning component. You can just go in and you can create your own template, define the number of regions you want, and even add a little bit of JavaScript and fun. So I have an example of a template, and I did it last platform. Admin Readiness. So if you want to learn a bit more, you can look at that, or you can just go online and see some of the documentation. We did release a set of new standard templates as well this in the spring release, and so what they are is they're actually templates that that include pinned regions for consoles. So you can actually have a pinned header or a pinned sidebar, and this really, you can pick one of those options for record pages, and what it basically does is whatever content you put in there, your surfaces there, it's going to just persist. So if you have, account information and you want to have cases in one region, and you don't want that account information to leave when you go and you navigate, you can keep it there, and that's what you use the pinned templates for.
Yeah, which is huge for all of our admins that are building console apps for their users to help increase productivity and give them that console experience. So definitely explore pinning in console as one of the great release features.
Yeah. And console overall is a really good thing. I use it every day, and it's a big productivity gain. So if you definitely have users that can benefit from it, try it out with the pinned region templates. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question on customization, Rebecca.
Great. I have a question here from Rick. In App Builder, are we able to use dynamic properties at the field level versus the component level?
It's something we're working on. So we are really focused. So right now, I think we're in a good state where we've got the app building, and we have the page level with the components and the dynamic functionality. I think we're in a good state. And some of the stuff we're working on for the next few releases are really focused on drilling into the actual page layout driven stuff. So things like fields and the sections of the fields that appear in the record details, for example. And so we want to build it in a way to where all the things we've done, all the great work we've done with dynamic pages would be able to trickle into that, so you can have those dynamic experiences down to the field level. We know that's been a big ask. I think it's the top idea exchange idea, at least the top active one. And that's something that we are actively working on. So that's the update that I can give, but trust me, it's really good news that we're putting pen to paper there.
So what I'm hearing is that we're not done with all of the great things that are coming for App Builder and for how admins customize. So it's a great time for admins, if they haven't yet gotten hands-on with these features, to learn these features, learn how to take advantage of building pages, optimizing them, dynamic pages, because it's going to keep getting better, right?
It's going to keep getting better. In any way you can get your hands on it, I absolutely recommend it, and would just love to hear your feedback, especially for first-time users out there. If you've probably seen App Builder in a lot of our marketing materials. It's been featured in keynotes and stuff, but if you haven't had your chance to get your hands on it, I'd love to get the feedback. So just reach out to us in the Trailblazer community and let us know how we're doing.
It's a great feature for our admins who are starting to explore Lightning as well, and understanding the look and feel and how it might differ for their custom apps or their standard apps from Classic.
Yes.
It's a great place for, I think, admins to get really comfortable with and to spend time, because they're probably going to be able to take advantage of new features and change how they did things in Classic with App Builder. I mean, they definitely will. So even if you're not on Lightning yet, it's still a great time to get into your sandbox, enable Lightning for yourself, wherever that might be, and start to build pages that work for you in Lightning and understand how to take advantage. Because it's kind of a philosophical shift in some ways for how admins are approaching some of the building.
Yeah, definitely. What we've done, and I think what the builder does, is it gives them a layer of control over the UI, where traditionally they would have to go to a developer.
So much more control. It's huge.
Right, and ask, beg, borrow, and steal some time in order to get that done. But at least with the builder tool itself, a lot of the things that they couldn't do in Classic, they can absolutely do and take advantage of. And we're just layering on more and more functionality as we get feedback. So yeah, we're excited about it.
Well, so excited for this release of App Builder and Customize and the future releases, and excited about automation, because our admins love to automate. They love to build that logic into their apps and surface it for their end users. So Alex, we're really excited to hear about what's new in automation in Spring 16.
Thanks, Leanne. Well, there's a lot to talk about. I thought I'd start with talking about some of the ways that you can now control your flows more effectively. We've added the ability to pause flows, and you can stop a flow at any time, come back to it, whether it's an hour from now, a month from now, or a year from now, and resume right where you left off. And that allows you to do more complex flows with the confidence that you can stop if you need to stop. And one thing that it also enables us to do is what we call handoffs, and that's where one person might start a flow, but another person might finish it, and that can be useful in all sorts of scenarios where workers are collaborating together in the work group. And you control that access with the same sharing rules that you're probably very familiar with, so you get a lot of flexibility there. And another place where we're really looking to add flexibility is in the different ways that you can deploy flows in process automation across your org. One of the ones that I think is going to be very popular is the fact that you can now attach a flow to a quick action. And so we've made it take just a couple clicks to create essentially a flow button, kind of like the one you see there for credit limit raise. And you can take that specific process and you can put that button right where you need it. If you're using Service Cloud Console, you can take the most frequently used flows and you can put them right on your utility bar. And for Community Cloud users, we're very excited about the way that you can now easily drag an entire flow into any community page and thus extend that process capability to all of the millions of people that are using Community today. And while those are pretty exciting features, but my personal favorite of the release is without question this one, Flow Screen Components. We have added the ability to take Lightning components, pieces of component functionality that someone else has written, install them into your org, and drag them into your screen. And as you see from this flow screen here, it tremendously expands the range of what's possible in a flow screen. You have all sorts of things going on here, but rather than just talk to them, I thought that I'd show an actual demo right here on the screen so that you can see it yourself. And what you're looking at here is an actual flow screen. And on top here, I've got a progress bar, I should say, that uses standard Lightning progress to tell users where they are. This also, as a bit of a digression, takes advantage of a new piece of functionality called stages that we've added to flows that allows the flow designer to group the different screens into sort of categories and make it easier for the user to see exactly how far they are through the flow. And then as we progress down here, you can see that there's a date time picker. This is something that normally has been accessible, but only if you were a developer and you wrote code and you knew how to use developer components. We're trying to take that and make it possible so that any admin can simply drag that into their screen. And another very useful little component here is this file open, this sort of upload files button that you can now just add to any flow. And then down here at the bottom, you can see a rather complex component, an entire data table that once again, we have leveraged work that the Lightning platform team has done and taken that and made it possible to use it very easily inside of every screen. And yet, despite how cool that all is, the most impressive thing, the thing that I think is the awesomest on this screen is actually this seemingly innocuous little radio button here, because it's not a normal radio button. It's what we call a dynamic question. And a dynamic question is a question where you can take what the user answers and then respond to it. So when I click on yes, you can see here that a whole set of appropriate subordinate child questions pop open. And if I click on no, I get a different set of questions. And that's nice, but what is perhaps the best about that is how easy it is to set that up. And let me show you just how easy it is to create one of those and add it to a flow. So I'm here in the Flow Designer, and if we sort of open this up, you can see this very simple looking screen here. And if I run it, you can see that there is the same question that you just saw. And that's pretty nice, but you know what? Let's add another question. So all you have to do to take advantage of all of these powerful new components is go down here to this new section we've added called Lightning Component, and let's drag that in, and let's call this question 2. And here we click and we select, and it's going to show you all of the Lightning components that your org has installed. So you get to control what do you want your flow designers to be able to access. And we're going to select dynamic question here. And now what we're going to do is you can see there's a lot of things you can configure because you're actually able to add up to 16 children questions. But we're going to just go here and say, does the customer want the upgrade offer? And so now we've got that. And the next question is where the real magic takes place. We call it dynamic ES fields. So this is where you get to decide what you want. So let's say that we want a text field, and we want a checkbox, and we want some radio buttons. And so, well, if we're going to do that, we better come up with some labels. So let's start with the text field and add, we'll call that quantity. And for the checkbox, perhaps we might call that use billing address. And then for the radio buttons, let's just go down here and say what size. And for radio buttons, there's a little more power there because, of course, you also want to specify what the radio button choices say. So the way you do that here is by entering those choices. So we'll say small. And the reason I'm adding 2 values here is because you get to separate out the label that the user sees from the value that you use downstream in the rest of your flow. So now we've got that, and you can see that it's saying, wait a second, what about the outputs? Because normally you want to take what the user actually enters and you want to use that downstream. Maybe you want to update a record, put it into an ordering system, post it to a chatter group. In the interest of time, I'm not going to create that part of it right now. We'll just jump ahead and I'll show you that in that small amount of time, I have just added an entire dynamic question, and you can see it pops open with this. And that's interesting. I wonder why the radio button didn't quite show there, but we can go back there, and that's essentially what we've got here. The other thing that we are doing in I think I see exactly what the problem is, and that's one of the nice things. You can jump right down here, and you can find it out. The problem here was that some of you might have been probably seeing this and trying to contact desperately on Twitter and saying, he selected list box instead of radio button. He selected, my God, help the poor man. He selected list box instead of radio button. Well, I appreciate all of those of you who are sending me mental help notes, because I was able to see it and spot it, and there's my radio button. So solved in the nick of time. Now, we have something else besides these screen components that's very exciting. So I'm going to go back to the slides and talk about a new pilot we're starting, which is sort of the cousin of screen components. And we call that action components. And the main difference is that action components are designed not to go into screens, but instead to sit as standalone actions that you can drag off the palette into your flow. You can see there on the right side of the screen some of these actions loaded into your flow palette. And some of the powerful things you can do by taking the power of Lightning components and using them in this way are listed here. One of them we're excited about is called direct data queries. And what that's designed to do is solve a problem where sometimes you want to get to some on-premises data. You've got something in an Oracle database perhaps, or you've got something in a private cloud. And Salesforce has always provided ways to get at that data, but it often requires going in through external firewalls. Product security gets involved. We wanted to provide an additional solution. And with direct data queries, we're using the power of JavaScript to let you make direct queries inside your firewall to all of that enterprise data that you have created and are maintaining. You can pull that data in, and you can use it in your flows exactly the way you want it. And then sort of on the other end of the spectrum from enterprise data seriousness, we've got browser integration, which lets you put into your flow some of the useful and fun things that the user experience can provide people when they're using their web browsers. You can have toasts pop up. You can play sounds. You can load a URL into another tab. And so we've added a lot of extra power there. And this pilot is going to be an open pilot. So if you're interested in playing with some of the things that Flow Action components can do, you'll be able to get into the pilot by requesting it from customer support. And then the final thing, items I just want to mention that we have just a little more time to talk about. We've added some capabilities to programmatically control all of the pieces of a flow screen. And by that I mean the next button, the previous button, the header. You can take that all over now. You can use a Lightning component and even control when the flow goes to the next slide, next screen, or back to the previous screen. So you could do something to tie this all together, such as making a query to some enterprise system, pulling a piece of data back, and based on that data, maybe you take them to the next screen, or maybe you give them a toast pop-up that tells them that they need to fill in some additional value. So we're really extending what you can do with flows there. We recently added translation workbench support because we wanted to make it easy to localize flows. And the final thing I'll mention is that we've extended Process Builder so that you can trigger, in addition to the things that you can already trigger on, you can trigger automation anytime you receive a platform event. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the recently released platform events, they're a really effective way to pass messages from different systems. And that enables non-Salesforce technology to trigger things inside the Salesforce system much more easily than ever before. So, Leanne, a lot of things going on in the Flow world, and we're really excited about what people are going to do with them.
What an exciting release for Flow. I know there's a few that I'm especially excited about. One of them is Process Builder in Flow, which you mentioned just now, and that is giving admins even more power, right, to help manage how information passes through their organization, how they're reacting to external events. Very excited to see some of the updates on how users are engaging with flows and the ways that they can surface flows to those end users. I think we're making it easier and easier for admins to get hands-on with Flow and make them available to their users. So
right.
Awesome. So, and I know that our community, we've got some Flownatics out there and some also admins who are getting acquainted with Flow now. So I hope that we've got some fun reactions and good questions from the community. Rebecca?
We do. The Flownatics are out in force right now. They're super excited about this segment. Just some shout outs. We've got Krista saying, show me the flow. This process automation segment is super exciting. I agree. Barry Robertson is asking if anyone else is drooling out there over the flow components. And we have a lot of people saying how this is a game changer for admins. So a lot of really exciting reactions to this segment. And with that, of course, lots of questions as well. So I'll try to get through as many as we can right now. Starting with one from earlier, Rick was asking if Process Builder and Flow will eventually be merged into one product, if that is something.
Well, the idea behind Process Builder was, hey, we already had a Flow Designer tool that was full of power, but wasn't necessarily the easiest tool to use. So the designers of Process Builder really focused on taking the most common use cases and making them really easy to use. Now we have a major effort going on inside of the group to build the new Flow Builder. And that's going to look like the app builder that you just saw Mike demonstrate. So the tools are going to be moving together in terms of their look and feel, and they're going to use and share more and more components. Will there someday be a single tool that does everything for everyone? It's possible. We certainly want to make it as easy as possible for you to get the job done with not having to use more tools than necessary. But we'll see how that goes in terms of hitting the right balance between power and usability.
Great. Okay, so we have another question from Dane. With all these great additions to Flow, are you going to increase the limit on paused flows from the current 30K?
I'm delighted that you're running into limits because that means that we're doing something effective with making that functionality available. We share oftentimes frustration of our users in hitting flows. One of the realities is that we don't control those limits. Those limits are set by essentially by the parts of the organization that run the platform. But we do influence that, and there are ongoing discussions about, where are the pinch points? Where can we extend those limits? We have parts of the team working now on optimizations so that you can do more with the limits that you have. So hopefully we'll be able to give you additional capacity there in the future, but I can't promise that right now because it's just not under our control, unfortunately.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Sarah Williams has a question. Will flow actions ever be available as global actions rather than just object-specific actions?
Well, our vision for flow actions is very global in nature, and the flow actions that I was talking to earlier are going to be deployable into flows and usable across the widest possible context. And basically any information that you're able to pass into the flow, you're going to be able to use. And so I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, then I'd be happy to go into more detail in case you're talking something more about like the quick action framework. We can go into more detail offline.
If we have more time, I can do one more question.
We have time for probably 2 more questions, actually.
Okay. Erica is asking, any thoughts on viewing workflows on the objects instead of under workflows?
Well, our focus these days is a little less about assigning the flow to the object, and it's more about starting with the flow and letting the flow work with multiple objects. Because what we want to enable is we want to enable richer processes, and richer processes often involve more than one object. They involve cases and contacts, they involve accounts, they involve products. So you can go in today and create a flow that works with multiple objects. And so if you're running into limitations of workflow rules, perhaps, then you might want to try Process Builder, which is a little richer. And if you're running into limitations with the way that Process Builder requires you to specify a single action to trigger on, then you might want to try exploring Visual Flow and the Cloudflow Designer, which gives you a little more power and reduces some of the constraints.
Thank you.
Did we have one more question?
Sure, we definitely have one more. Kevin Lee is asking, will we ever be able to break out of a nested loop once criteria is met without having to run through every iteration?
That's a good question. The simple answer is we're not making any changes right now to how Flow does its sort of native processing of nested loops. However, you might want to explore as a sort of way to end around the problem, how you could use one of these new screen components to address that issue. It's very straightforward in the world of Lightning components to structure your own flow control. And while it's not quite point and click to do that, if you use one of the trailheads for how to create Lightning components, which is actually how I learned how to create Lightning components, you might find that before you know it, you're able to create exactly the custom situation you want, where you break out of the loop based on exactly the criteria you want at exactly the time you want. So that power is actually now within reach. We'll continue to try and make it easier to do it with just point and click, but I do want you to know that you've got some additional tools you can turn to.
So thank you for answering those questions, and thank you, community, for asking those questions of us. And we will be getting to more questions, time allowing, at the end. And as Rebecca said, we are definitely going to be revisiting all of the questions after this broadcast is over to ensure that we're diving into all of the reactions and questions that are out there. So great presentation, Alex. Thank you so much, and thank you for going through those answers in such detail. I think it's really helpful for our Flow community and for those admins who maybe haven't tried Flow yet, and now they want to see what all the fuss is about and get hands-on with it. So thank you. Very exciting release for Flow.
Thanks, Leanne.
So we've learned about how we can customize our pages, customize our apps, automate and deliver those automations for our end users. And I'm really excited to hear more about one of our biggest announcements at Dreamforce, which was how we can personalize and customize even more for our end users. So off to you, Joe.
Thanks. I am really excited to be here. I've been waiting months to talk to you guys about these new features in Spring. And so let's jump right into what they are. And you probably heard about this at Dreamforce. We called it My Lightning, as Leanne just mentioned. And you probably saw it in every single keynote and demo we did there. And you can see T-Mobile in the background. But you now have the ability in Spring to brand your org. So for those of you waiting for this functionality to fully migrate, you have it now. It's super easy to use. Let me kind of tell you about it. It's org-wide. You just do a couple simple settings, some colors, some images, whatever you want, and you can roll it out with a few clicks. We give you 7 built-in themes, so we kind of had a little fun internally and built some nice themes for you that you can use. But if you want to create your own, you can create 300, so you can go crazy making whatever themes you want. You might think about like a company theme. You can think about like if you have company milestones or a product launch or a sales kickoff, you might have a theme for a quarter or a month. So lots of ways to take advantage of it. And you can also test drive themes. So as an admin, if you're worried about like, oh, it's a lot of pressure to like be creative and make this, don't worry about it. You can put some stuff in, test drive around, see if you like it, get some user feedback, and then when you feel confident, a few clicks to roll it out. So I'll show you a detailed demo of that in a second, but it's a really exciting, easy to use feature in Spring.
Yeah, this is such an exciting feature. I mean, it's gonna, and it, as you said, I mean, it's so straightforward and intuitive to use as an admin that they can get hands-on today and explore and play with some of those pre-built features that have really fun names, by the way, or pre-built themes that have really fun names. I like, what is it, Cody's Canyon?
Cody Canyon,
one of my favorites. But then they can build their own and think about creative ways to use them in their environments or in their orgs, right, based on what's going on in the company. So it's super exciting to see how our customers will use this feature.
Agree. Yeah, and if you play around with the built-in themes, we have some Easter eggs kind of hidden in the background, so let us know if you find those for fun. The next awesome feature is, it's been long in the coming, but we basically have heard from you every single day about, I miscustomized my tabs, I love Lightning, when can I manipulate the tab bar? And finally it's here, so now all end users can personalize their nav bar. It works on Lightning apps, not Classic apps. But one of the really awesome things about this, we didn't just want to copy the feature from Classic, we wanted to innovate beyond that. We did a lot of research on this feature, and we talked to a bunch of people who use Classic and who navigate around and gave us feedback on what they do every day. What we heard overwhelmingly was, I go to list views. I go look at my opportunities. I look at my accounts and I drill through each one. I take a look at what's going on. So could I just go right to that when I start my day? Well, now you can in Lightning. So one of the great things about granular items that you can put in your nav bar is you can put that dashboard, you can put that opportunities list right there front and center, and you can make it your very first tab so it loads right when you log into Lightning. So that's super convenient for productivity, right? Also for admins, I know you're thinking like, okay, I've got my apps all configured, I put all this stuff in them, there's a whole bunch of process behind this. How do I make sure that my apps stay under my control? So we thought about this carefully and we wanted to have a nice balance point between admins and end users. And so how we've done this in Spring is all the items that you put into the app as the admin are protected, they're in the app. People cannot remove them from the app, but they can reorder them to the end if they don't want them in the first couple slots. But then we gave people the choice to add their own content to really personalize the nav bar and make it theirs. So I'm going to give you a detailed demo now to give you a sense for both of these features and how awesome they are. Okay, so here I am in my org, and I wanted to first start out by just saying, you know, we did a lot of tweaks to Winter 18, hope you like them, but we really kind of made the Lightning UI more awesome. We added more contrast, more legibility. We put in this fun blue background behind things. So hopefully you noticed and hopefully you loved all those changes, and we're going to keep making those enhancements over time. But now with theming and branding, you can take it into your own hands and change it yourself. So if you had gone around setup and you had found this themes and branding node before, you know that in Winter we just had a simple checkbox there. And we kind of told you something was coming in the future, but now the future is here. And what you see if you go there now in setup is this great list view where all of your themes are shown. And so right out of the box, you see these 7 Salesforce built-in themes. So things like Cody Canyon or Cloudy Sky, there's an Einstein one for fun. So check all those out. And what you should know is that the built-in default theme is called Lightning Blue. So out of the box, your org will be set to that theme. And if you had gone into this screen in Winter and you had checked the box to hide the background image and make it a white background, we've auto-migrated you to Lightning Light. So that is the more kind of simplified, minimized theme. So those are your choices there. But I want to first kind of show you what you can do in here. So First of all, for any theme, you can take a look and see what it's made of. And for all the built-in themes, you can view them, but you can't edit or delete them. So we're going to work on making them clonable for you in the future. But right now with View, if we go take a look at what makes up Lightning Blue, our default theme, you'll see that you have a name for a theme, a description to help you remember what it was. You have your brand image, which you can use transparency to have stuff float above the header. You set your brand color, your page background color, and global header. So we wanted to give you a couple color choices to kind of set the tone for your brand colors, your complementary colors, what you thought was important. And then we're showing you a preview here called the brand-based color palette, which gives you a sense for, we've calculated some colors for you automatically that are 508 compliant. So as we generate the UI, we use your chosen colors. We also use additional colors to help make sure it's legible and has the right contrast. And so we're giving you a preview here of what that color palette looks like for your reference. So beyond the colors, the other cool thing is images. So you don't have to set all of these, but if you want to, for fun, you can set a background image behind working pages. So you think about behind a record, behind a list, a dashboard, you can have that image here. And one note about images in this release. So for every single one of these, we give you the resolution required when you upload. And we know it's kind of a pain to have to crop and resize by hand, so we're sorry about that, but we're working on an awesome cropping and resizing tool for the next release so that you can have a tool to let you do that automatically as you upload. But as you go through, you set these images, you can define the default group banner, you can define the default profile banner, and also what's neat is you can set the default avatars. So for people that don't upload a chatter photo or don't upload a group photo, you can have one set for your company by default. So that's just a sense for what the built-in theme for Lightning Blue looks like. Now I want to show you a really cool custom theme we have called Makana Health. So if I go and look at this one, this is kind of meant to be more of a healthcare company. We have a lot more use of kind of softer colors, pastels. You can see a lot of the imagery here that kind of feels like healthcare. And I want to show you about the preview function. So once you have a theme that you've put together and you want to check it out, of course you can always activate it, but there's a preview button down here at the bottom, and if I hit that, it's going to put my session into a preview mode. So only me, the admin, is seeing this. So all the rest of your org is still on the previous theme that you've set. But now I can drive around and check it out. And you'll see at the top of the screen here, we have a banner that says you're previewing a theme. So you know that you're in this kind of preview mode as you're doing this. So if I flip over to a different tab in the org and I refresh, you'll see it instantly refresh with the Makana theme. So you're getting a sense for what it looks like. And it's good to kind of drive around, make sure you like how it looks, check out your Visualforce pages, anything else you're concerned about, and see if you like the way the colors came out. And I will mention one thing about images. When you change a theme, there may be a 5-minute, 10-minute delay before all of the image assets fully come in. So if you notice they're lagging behind by a few minutes, that's okay. It's kind of how it works. So it's good to kind of check it out. And when you're done with the preview, you just click End Preview, and it puts it back the way it was. So I'm going to go back here and set up for a second. And this time, I'm just going to go ahead and activate a different theme that I have, which is called Northern Trail Outfitters. So when I activate this, again, it's applied to the entire org now. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And now we're kind of in the mode of we are a outdoor apparel company. So we're called Northern Trail. One of the cool things about this theme that I like is you can have a dark header. So if you like having that really kind of stark contrast to make it pop, it looks really great. You can see how the logo is kind of floating on top of the black background. So it looks really slick. So I love that. So that was a good segue into the next feature, which is now I've personalized or customized the entire org's look and feel. How do I make my navigation feel like my Lightning, right? So we're in this app called Customers First, and I'm a service worker, and this is how the admin, how you guys have set up this app. So I have a set of tabs already in here, which is great, but I work my own way, and there's things that I care about as well. And so one of the things I care about is chatter groups. I love talking to people at work. So I want to bring in some more content in this nav bar. There's lots of ways to use this new feature. It's very flexible. So let me kind of show you a couple different ways to bring content in. The essential thing here is that you add content to the nav bar by loading it up, by navigating to it so it's right front and center. So in this case, we have to go get the Groups tab. So I'll go ahead and go into App Launcher. And what's great about App Launcher is you have all your items at the bottom, but you can always search with the search bar at the top. So I'm going to type in Groups, and I'm instantly going to find that tab that I wanted. So if I click on Groups, you'll see it dropped right into the nav bar right away. And you notice how this looks a little bit different. It's got italics, a little star in front of it. That's our indication to you that this is a temporary tab. So we have created a way that when you access kind of outside content outside the app as it's defined, we have to house it somewhere so you can work with it. So groups is now popped into this tab, and what's neat about this is I have some options. So of course I can create a new group if I want to. I can look at recent records like my Mountaineers group that I went to, but I have a couple new actions too. One of them is called Add to Navbar. So if I click that, it's going to take this Groups tab, and just like that, it's going to permanently put it in my personal navbar. So now I've made that change, right? Let's see something else about this. So if I go to, say, Dashboards, and let's say there's a dashboard that I look at every single day, and I want to have it load front and center for my job. So I'll go ahead and pull up a dashboard here. And the other cool action we have in the menu is once you're looking at something that you find really useful and want to keep around as a dedicated tab, you just open the tab again, and you use this Open in New Tab function. And what it does is it creates its own dedicated tab just for that thing. So you see that it popped out right here, and now we have this dashboard name as the tab name. So I'm going to go ahead and say Add to Navbar, and I'll show you a cool trick later. We can actually rename this tab and make it whatever you want. So now we have 2 tabs of our own in here, which is great. Also, accounts, right? Take a look at an account, load one up. And just for fun, let's also create one of those and put it there front and center. So we'll go to Roseburg Products. Got that up handy here. We can pop that one out as well, and we'll go ahead and add that to our navbar. So now you're probably wondering, okay, I got all this stuff in here that I like and I care about. How do I change the order of this? So this great pencil icon over here on the right is how you do kind of ongoing edits. So we'll go ahead and go in that edit screen right now. And if you've used favorites, you've probably seen this kind of design before, but you have kind of a drag and drop vertical list. So you can drag stuff around to your heart's content, and all of the kind of admin defined app items are here, and they cannot be deleted, but they can be reordered. And then you see here at the bottom, the things that I, the user, have personally added have some options. So I can remove the things I've added. I can also rename certain things. So let's go ahead and change that dashboard name. Let's call it My Dashboard, just because that makes more sense for me. And just like that, I've renamed a tab, right? And let's also put that dashboard at the very top of my list, so it loads first when I log into Lightning. Super useful. So I've made a couple changes there, and I'll go ahead and click Save. And it'll refresh. And what you're going to see now, when I zoom back out, is that now My Dashboard is the very first tab. And if I were to click on that, it goes right to that dashboard immediately. So you have ways to essentially pin important content right there front and center in your nav bar. I do want to cover one more thing about navigation and temporary tabs, and that is kind of how the parent-child hierarchy works. So if I go to Roseburg Products, this account, and I think about accessing content from that. So I'm looking at this account, and there's a bunch of sales order records, and I want to go pull one of those up. So you'll probably notice right now that in this nav, I don't have a sales orders tab. So what's going to happen if I do that? I'm going to go click on one of these records, and what you're going to see here is that that record that I clicked on has popped out as its own temporary tab. So what the system tried to do is it said, what is the appropriate place to put this content? It looked for a parent, so in this case, sales orders. It didn't find that, so it created a temporary tab to house the content. So I can now just say, okay, I'm going to add this to my nav bar, or let's say that you were just looking at it for a few minutes. You can keep it here for a while. You can flip back to your dashboard, take a look at some stuff, kind of scroll around, get a sense for what's going on with your metrics, and then you can click right back on that record, look at the record for a little bit, and if you're done with it, you can just exit out and it's gone. So in some ways, kind of how console apps work, you have some of that hybrid functionality now in standard nav. The last thing I'll mention about this is, as you're configuring your nav, if you want to go back to how it was set by your admin, if you want to kind of restore the original settings, that's super easy too. If you go back to the edit screen, we have a handy link here at the bottom to reset your navigation to default. So if you click that, it's going to show you what's going to happen. If you click Save, just like that, all of my personalizations have been taken away, and it's back to the default state for that app. So hopefully that gave you a good sense kind of what you can do with these 2 features. There's a lot more to it, so we'd love to get your feedback in the community about how it's going, any questions you have, listening intently for all of your feedback on that. So I'm going to go back to some slides now and talk a little bit about some things you should know, some pro tips. So I mentioned the importance of temporary tabs and how they're new. They're an important new aspect of the navigation in Spring. I mentioned they contain kind of outside content, and so it's important to know that they're part of how this works. They're part of how personalization works. They are the first step in bringing content in so you can add it. You can also create them on demand, as I showed you. So if you want to pop things out like a dashboard or a record and then pin it, that's kind of how you do that mechanically. And they are ephemeral, so if you pop some out and then you change apps or you log out, they're going to go away. So if you want to keep them, you have to make the choice to add them to your nav bar. So it's important that people understand how these work, and what we found as a good practice is perhaps creating a short training video, or at least giving a couple scenarios to people in your org to tell them, here's the apps you're using, here's how you can customize them the way you want, and answer questions through a video or through a blog post. There's a couple things to get ready for. So as you think about giving people the best possible experience for navigation, one thing to know is that you can only personalize Lightning apps. So if you have apps that you haven't yet upgraded to a Lightning app, you might consider doing that now to let them have that option. And also keep in mind that there's a limit of 50 items for personalization per app. So if you have 30 items already in the app as the admin, you're leaving them 20 slots to put their own items. So just keep in mind that constraint, and maybe tidy up some of what you have in the app and get it down to kind of a more minimal core set of items to work with. Also, one thing we recommend you might consider doing for more kind of power users is maybe giving them a blank slate app. So we've seen it work where you put 1 or 2 essential tabs in there, and then you give them a lot of space to put whatever else they want to put in that app. So different ways to roll this out, whether you want them to just personalize what you already have or whether you want them to create something new, but just wanted to give you the option to consider how to do that. So on the roadmap for this, we have a lot of ideas. We're kind of moving forward here. So we know that we don't want to always personalize every single app you have. So we're going to give you more controls in the next release to let you choose which apps may not be appropriate in some cases for personalization. So you'll have that checkbox soon. And then we want to think about, how are people liking temporary tabs? Does it make sense how they work? We'd love to get your feedback. So we may make some adjustments around that behavior. We might have some checkboxes for kind of controlling user preference around that. And then we've been already asked about this, but people want to customize and personalize console apps too. So when can we have that option? That's on the roadmap soon for how to do that. On the theming side, I mentioned the cropping and resizing tool we're going to build. So we want to make it really easy if you're not a visual design expert to be able to put in a great theme. And so if you upload a great image and you want to have help kind of cropping that, we're going to give you that tool in the UI. We know that you like maybe our built-in Salesforce themes and want to modify them. So giving you the option to clone them and then make your own changes. We're going to give you that in the next release as well. We're working on packaging, and part of what's cool about packaging for themes is that if you're an app developer, we're working toward giving you app theming, so you can actually create your own apps, make them look totally distinct and awesome, package it up, put it on App Exchange, or if you install one of those themed apps, have that theme be automatically installed with the app and used while it's running. So cool roadmap around that. And then finally, as always, please give us feedback on the Lightning UI. We know that you want to keep having us tighten up the spacing, give you more lines, all those kind of things. Keep telling us what you want. We're listening intently for your feedback on how to tweak the UI. So with that, I'd love to take any questions you've thought of on the community.
Yeah, awesome. Great demo, great presentation, Joe. Super excited for everything that's coming for our admins, especially customizing Nav. I mean, you mentioned some of the best practices for admins, how they can roll this out and help their users be successful with it.
Yep.
So this is definitely a great opportunity for admins to think about proactively communicating with their users and helping them, take advantage and use those features in this release.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure our community is very excited as well.
And listen, we know that whenever we touch navigation, it can, it can be great or it can be a little scary. And so we'll keep tweaking the feature. If you have feedback about how you want to see it change, we're all ears to hear your feedback.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, let's hear from the community. Do we have any questions or reactions?
We sure do. And I can start with actually one that's, you asked for feedback, one that's kind of feedback related.
Okay.
Mark Brusso was asking, with Winter 18, the record detail is indeed easier to read. However, any plans to add more contrast between the field label and the field data?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question, Mark. We actually have a huge project right now to rethink the design of the detail panel, to think about where lines should go, where field labels should go, the amount of contrast, the boldness. We have a lot of ideas we're actually researching. So if you want to go ahead and post on the community, we're looking for people to be part of research studies. We'd love your input that way.
So another question from Cindy Spencer. Can I apply a different theme to each user?
I love that question. So not quite yet. This is sort of the typical rollout where we go from kind of big to small. So we started with the org to let you brand the entire org. And the next thing up will be app theming to let you take certain apps, like maybe for your service department or your sales department, and make those look distinct. And then we've heard people say, well, can I pick my own theme? So maybe we're thinking about would the admin select 5 pre-approved themes they could pick from, or how that might work. So we'd love your thoughts on how that feature might work for end users.
So we actually have another question on theming along the same lines from Dane. he was wondering if you could change the themes based on fields or on records or a variable, so that if
I love
someone...
that. I think Michael and I should work on making that dynamic. So that's a great idea. You know, I think we've thought about ways to let you do more kind of badging and dynamic color on things in the UI in general. And so I think ideas like that and tying it to a theme could be really kind of a cool way to innovate that. I agree.
And then one last question. So, love the whole personalization of the nav bar, but what if you wanted to control that and not give end users the ability to
Right. So,
do that?
Of course, we want admins to have the final say. So we've turned this on by default. We want people to enjoy this feature. We've heard about it every day. We know that people want it. So we wanted to make it prevalent. We want to give you more controls to disable it if that's appropriate. So you'll have fine-grained control in the next release to do that per app. There is going to be a checkbox in time. In a few more weeks, we're going to have a release where we're going to have a checkbox. If you want to turn it off for the entire org, if that's your choice, you'll be able to disable it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for those questions, community, and we'll continue to answer those questions both online and hopefully at the end of this broadcast today. Thank you, Joe, for such a great presentation.
Thank you.
It's super impactful. What a great set of products for both our end users and our admins. I can't wait to see how people use theming and how they roll out the navigation to their users. And I think it'll be really fun to see, especially now I'm really excited for app theming in the future. That'll be a really fun feature.
Yep.
So thank you. Great presentation. So as admins, it's important that we learn about all of the areas that we can customize and automate and build apps and build this experience for our end users with every release. But it's also important as admins that we're staying really abreast of all of those features that might impact our end users, whether or not they require any admin or setup steps, because we want to make sure that we're the ambassadors of Salesforce in our environments, in our companies, and that we're helping users take advantage of all of the cool features, whether they're navigation features or sales productivity features. So we always like to include a few of those end user features that we are really excited about in a release to help you kind of know where to spend some time as admins. But again, definitely read through the release notes, and I encourage you to attend all of the release readiness sessions next week as well. The Sales Cloud session always delves really deeply into all of those features that are going to impact your end users, as well as new features they can take advantage of. One feature that I'd love to talk about, or actually there's a few features I'd love to talk about in Spring 18, are ways that we can help our users be really successful with Lightning. So we want to support all of our admins out there that have enabled Lightning for their orgs and have selected users to enable Lightning for through profiles and perm sets. And so in Spring 18, there's now a new prompt for those end users when they log in, only if they're still using Classic. So again, this is a prompt for those users that as an admin, you've already enabled it for your org, and you've already enabled it for those users. So potentially if you're doing a phased rollout or have pilot groups, this would only impact those users that you've enabled Lightning Experience for. And those users, if they're still using Classic, they'll see a prompt when they log in, encouraging them to explore Lightning. So we can try to support your process with enabling Lightning as admins. This is something that was turned on by default in Spring 18. However, as admins, you have the power to turn it off in setup as well. So something that just important to know about and be aware of as you go in for those users that you've turned Lightning on for that are still in Classic. We also have a ton of new productivity features for end users. So this list is definitely not exhaustive because there's so much in this release. However, there's new ways as admins that we can enable our end users to be productive, both with features that we help set up and also with features that maybe we just help educate them on or chatter them on or do a training session. One of those is macros. So those of you that have worked in service organizations or worked with service consoles, you might be familiar with macros in the past. That was kind of when we first saw macros, similar to how that's where we first saw console, because those are features that are built around helping your users be really efficient and minimize the number of clicks and minimize how many different tabs they have to open and different places they have to go. Well, all of our users need to be efficient, so now we have macros everywhere. So there is new ways for you as an admin to roll out macros for your users, and also new ways for your users to build and manage those macros. So if you haven't worked with macros before, it's a great time to get hands-on with macros and to explore where you can decrease the number of clicks for your users. We have mass actions on list views, so that if there's activities that your users are doing really often, they can now do that via list views by using mass actions. Path has been one of our favorite features in Lightning. We started with opportunities in Path, and we've rolled it out for more and more objects. And this release, we're rolling out to even more objects. Now you can have Path on accounts, campaigns, and cases. So Path is a great feature to explore. I happen to think you can find a use case for it on almost every object. So
Definitely.
It's a great feature to explore, and now we've given you even more places to use it. Your users have more places or more ways to manage their activity timeline, manage their reminders with filtered activity timeline, with setting their reminder settings, and also new features with how they can work with customers. So there's a ton of email features. So if you're interested in email, I definitely recommend going through the release notes. However, one feature that I'm finding myself use a lot is recently used email templates. So making it easier for your users to do emailing in Salesforce by surfacing those templates that they use most often. Your users can get into account and contact hierarchy with less clicks directly from the header, so you're making it easier for them to know what's going on with their orgs. They can add campaign members more easily, and there's an exciting LinkedIn integration for leads for your sales users or your lead gen users out there. I am most excited in some ways about Lightning reports and dashboards because I spend a lot of my time in Lightning reports and dashboards, and we can do even more with this release. So Lightning Report Builder is in their second beta, and we've got features that you know and love from classic reports, as well as some brand new features only in Lightning. So we've got buckets, cross filters, summary formulas. You can bring in a role hierarchy filter, which is very useful, especially if you're making reports for your end users and want to make one report to rule them all for your users. You can favorite reports, so we're using favorites quite a bit now. That's supported for reports as well. Lightning dashboards continue to be more and more useful and beautiful, I think, because we've got better tables, more ability to customize our tables. We can subscribe. So when you're trying to increase adoption of Lightning and Lightning dashboards for your users, encourage them to subscribe. A lot of users love that subscription feature in Classic, so we've got that in Lightning dashboards now. You can customize the colors, so if you're working with one of those great custom themes, you can now have more ability to customize your dashboards as a dashboard or by component as well, and you can favorite your folders. So we want to continue to learn as well. We covered a ton of features today, and we deep dived into the new features around some of the product areas that as admins are really important to spend time on. And so it's really important that we always continue learning. So definitely go through the release notes, get hands-on in your environments with these features, but also continue learning on Trailhead. So we've got an admin preview trail mix that you can get to at this URL. If you're not able to type it all the way so quickly, that's okay. We're going to share it on Twitter, and we're going to share it on the release community as well. So you can find it there if you can't copy this bit.ly too quickly. But this trail mix will help you get more acquainted with those features so that you can better take advantage of these release enhancements. And if you want to continue learning in person, we have an event coming up. It's a conference entirely focused on learning, Trailhead DX. So it's in San Francisco, March 28th and 29th. There's going to be a ton of sessions, keynotes, learning, speakers, hands-on workshops, all focused on learning how to take advantage of these features on the Salesforce platform and every feature that we offer for our builder community. So if you're interested, we hope to see you there. It's called Trailhead DX. You can find it on the Googles, March 28th and 29th, and that's a great place to do some hands-on learning as well. So with that, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We love hearing from you both through questions and feedback throughout the course of the broadcast. And it's also really important that we hear from you with our survey. So your feedback is super important to us, and we do this for you. So please fill out the survey at the bottom of the screen. Let us know what you think, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see us change or do differently. We want to hear from you because we do this for you. So please fill out the survey. I promise we read every single result. And I want to thank our amazing panel of product managers. Thank you for all you do to bring these amazing products to us and sharing the deep dives, great demos and presentations. And thank you, Rebecca, for managing our questions from the community and helping us stay on top of all those great questions. So thanks for joining us today, and we hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next week on Release Readiness Live.